everyone. Making this video really meant for anyone who is looking to learn more about sort of what type of analysis you should do when you're assessing an opportunity in front of you, right? So if you clicked on this video, you're either a dentist or someone who wants to be in commercial real estate or both, right? And you're looking to either start your first practice, own your first practice, buy your first practice, or you're a multi-location operator. You kind of just want to learn more about sort of like the real estate breakdown of opportunities that might come your way, right? So we're going to go straight into it. I'm going to basically act as if I'm the buyer or if I'm the one who's going to be purchasing the practice, real estate, whatever it may be, and what type of analysis I recommend people kind of go through, right? So we're at our homepage here. I'm clicking properties, and essentially I'm looking for a property that I may be interested in, right? So I want to be in the city. I want to have a practice that ideally is cash flowing pretty quickly. And I want to be in an area that just makes the most sense here. So let's say I come across this listing here, 120 South State Street. 120 South State Street is probably an ideal location for me. As someone from being in Chicago, I know what 120 South State Street looks like. It's a busy street in the Chicago. It's in the Loop. And if you look at the interior here, right, you're looking at a fully fleshed out front desk, reception area, patient area. You have chairs already plumbed and equipped, ready to go. It just looks like I could just walk in and start practicing dentistry, and it fits sort of like that downtown vibe. I'm looking at a CBCT here. I'm looking at the price. So it's it's $1 million to purchase what exactly? So I'm purchasing the real estate and I'm purchasing the equipment in the real estate. And so I'm buying this dental condo. And there's a lot of benefits to owning your own real estate, especially if you're a dentist, especially if you're looking to own a practice in the city, right? So at face value, as I'm looking kind of through this listing, which, any listing, it doesn't have to be a JRA. It could be any listing out there. We'll have photos, we'll have a description, and we'll tell you sort of like what the property details are. But does it make sense, right? And so, if I'm in your position and I'm a dentist or I'm a real estate investor, the first thing I'm thinking about is, okay, what is this asset going to cash flow for me, right? I'm going to buy it for $1 million. I'm obviously going to put a dental practice in here. Does it make sense, right? And so the first place I'm going to go to is I'm going to go here to Denographics. And if you don't know what Denographics is, it's basically a web application that allows for anyone to take a look at what the population is of a certain area, what the household incomes are, how many practices there are, and sort of like what the saturation from practice to population is. So for example, in California, there's almost 40 million people, 14,000 practices, and you can see that across the country, right? Here, specifically, we're going to use this for 120 South State Street. South Street. Okay. So I'm going to search it up, 3-mile radius. That's pretty standard. And now I have this. Okay, great. I have a population of 347,000 people with 188 practices and a saturation number of 1,850. That's pretty healthy. In the city, what we're looking for is anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 and up in terms of saturation. And I think this kind of fits exactly where I would feel comfortable in opening up a dental practice, right? I think a lot of people, a lot of inexperienced, doctors who may not own a practice and kind of going through this first time might look at this and go like, holy cannoli, this is a lot of dental practices. I can't compete. And I think that's the wrong mindset to have. You can always compete, right? Especially since when you kind of really dig into this, it's like, okay, is this really your competition, right? Is this practice, really something that's going to be competing with you? Are they in the same network as you? Are they going to be serving the same patients that you plan on serving? Do you have a different business model? Is there something that you want to do that could be a little bit more different than what your competitors are doing here, right? And so a lot of these practices you'll see, s- a good chunk of them can be practices that are also not in the area that are going to be competing with you. Like these practices here in Bridgeport are not competing with you, right? And so the practices around you, are they really your competition? You have to ask yourself, are they just that mom and pop shop with one or two people with one or two chairs open only like a day or two throughout the week? Is that really your competition? I would argue no, right? And so you see the number of employees within the city as well. You have 700,000 plus employees just in a 3 mile radius. So, from the demographics numbers, this looks like a banger, right? Like you could open up shop here and you'll get patients through the door pretty quickly, right? And even if you just do like a quick Google Maps search here. It's like you have Millennium Park, 2 blocks away. You have the Willis Tower 4 blocks away. You have a bank here. You have a hotel here. You have Subway here. You have a lot of government buildings here. You're on State Street. I mean, like there is no other street to be on. I mean, like look at this. You're just like in the middle of one of the largest shopping districts in the city of Chicago. And so it just wouldn't make any sense not to have a practice here because it's just you're going to get so much foot traffic. You have the train station here for ease of access, and you have just so much foot traffic going on throughout the year, right? And so with a lot of people coming back from those work from home policies from COVID, this is a no brainer, right? Then the question then becomes, is this the right price? Is this a fair price? Does the economics make sense? And so I built out a spreadsheet that we can kind of go through together. And it just kind of basically outlines, if you bought this real estate and you started a practice and you started cash flowing the practice, meaning you started seeing patients, you started marketing, you started hiring people, you started paying supplies, paying inventory, whatever it may be, would it make sense for you to own the real estate, start your practice here, and would you be able to walk home with money in your pocket, right? So, in order to do some sort of economic analysis here, let's just kind of break down sort of the baseline, right? The baseline is this is the property. It's Let's just say we bought it for $1 million. It's 2,300 square feet. The real estate taxes are 93.15 a year. HOA is 13,000 a year. Gas is about 1,500 a year. Electric is 2,340 a year, and then insurance is 3,500. Right. So those are sort of like the non-negotiables. You have to pay these. You need to pay these in order to operate your real estate. Right. And so if you take all those expenses, right, and you put it here, and this is kind of where the real sort of understanding of the economics and how the breakdown of the cash flow is going to be like, right? And so, what you want to kind of just highlight here, this is what we call revenue. I'm actually going to kind of just highlight this and just like designate it because it's really important that people understand this, right? This is the revenue. This is the collections that you should be expecting to do within 1 year of operations of this practice. And so let's say you bought the practice today and you started seeing patients tomorrow, right? It's March 11th. And so let's say you open up shop March 12th and you start seeing patients until next year, March 12th. Historically, and what the data shows is you should be averaging about $645,000 in collections. This is data that is not just taken from our own data, because we've done many, many startups at the firm, but data from banks, right? This is raw data from banks that give out these loans to startups, right? to start up dental practices, this is sort of like the number that most practices are falling under, right? And so you can kind of see the ramp up here, right? Like if this is your first year, if this is your first year in business and you just open up, you can, on average, expect to do about a $20,000 collection month, which is, if you're writing off 33%, maybe 40%, because it's your first time running a practice and you're writing off that much, you're producing maybe $40,000, collecting about $20,000, and you're ramping it up. And you're also kind of incorporating the holiday breaks, the summer dips when people go off on vacation. And if you see the ramp up here, you're doing about $645,000 in revenue. And that's what we see across the board with these dental practices, right? And so there's some assumptions, right? With any financial modeling, there's always going to be assumptions, right? So you can't take this video and be like, oh, this is not what happened. Well, these are assumptions, and this is under the assumption, the broader assumption that you're working on this practice and you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears on it because it's your business, it's your real estate. And so, what are some of the assumptions behind all of this, right? Core assumptions: 3 fully equipped operatories. You're working 4 days a week, and you're working at least 48 hours a week, 48 working weeks per year. It's pretty standard, right? The revenue ramp assumptions: gradual patient acquisition, right? You're not just sitting at the front desk twiddling your thumbs, right? You're actively marketing. You're on Google Ads. You're on social media. You're in the community. You're asking for, referrals and word of mouth, and you're handing out flyers. Your new patient growth increases. You have a great website. You have a great patient experience. You're doing the basics when it comes down to making sure your patients schedule for their periodics, for their recare, and you're collecting properly. Your insurance system, your revenue cycle systems are just foundational, right? You don't have to be an expert in marketing. You don't have to be an expert in insurance. These are just like, hey, you're putting your effort in, right? Patient flow assumptions, right? Assuming that you're getting at least 8 to 12 new patients per week, right, by month 3, 15 to 20 new patients per week by month 6, which is so doable, for a location like this. Case acceptance rate being about 55 to 65%. Look, if this is your first practice, you may not be the best at being chairside and converting patients and their cases. Fine. If that's the case, that's okay. As long as you have a case acceptance rate in that 50 to 65% range, you'll be good to go. PPO driven, patient base initially with gradual fee for service growth, and hygiene reactivation contributing recurring revenue by month 6. What that means is, hey, you are scheduling those patients for their periodics before they leave the office, and you're making sure they're getting on the schedule and that they're coming back because they enjoyed your patient experience, right? The expense assumptions, right? We're using industry standard dental overhead benchmarks, right? So this is data. This is raw data that we collect as we evaluate dental practices across the Midwest and across the country. And we're collecting this information and we're making these industry standards because this is what we see across the board, right? Credit card processing is at 3%, staff compensations at 25% of revenue, professional fees include CPAs, legal, lawyers, and advisory services. And then property costs are based on the actual taxes, HOA, and utility data, right? And so, there's a lot of assumptions that come down to what will affect the business's revenue and expenses. So let's go back to this, right? Let's say you buy the real estate, you start your practice, and you make $645,000 in collections. What do the expenses look like? And these are all your expenses, right? And they're kind of signified by like the little parentheses, right? And then I have a little percentage or ratio. So these ratios basically show, okay, here is what your expense is comparative to the revenue, right? So like, for example, let's say debt service, right? Debt service here is basically your loan that you've taken out to purchase the real estate, right? And so you bought the real estate at $1 million. Assuming that you're paying 0% down, 5.5% interest rate over a 15-year term. Now, these might change. It might go up, it might go down, but you're looking at about an $8,000 monthly um, rent payment. But more specifically to you, because you're purchasing the real estate, it's a mortgage payment, right? And so that's kind of like one of the signifying factors here, which is you have to understand you're not paying rent to a landlord. You're paying rent to your bank because your bank gave you a loan to purchase this real estate. So you have an opportunity to not just build the equity in your practice, you have an opportunity to build the equity in your real estate. And the reason why that's so important for really anyone who's looking at this opportunity is you now have the opportunity to break down and build the equity in both your real estate and your practice. And you will have two liquidity events down the line if you choose to do so. Most dental practice owners can only have one liquidity event. And what I mean by that is they can only sell their practice. Anyone else in this situation that is starting a practice in the city of Chicago, right? They're going to have to rent out their space most of the time, right? And when they're renting out their space, the rent that they're paying just goes straight to the landlord. The landlord does whatever they want with the money, right? At the end of your career, if you want to sell your office, you can only sell the dental practice, which is one liquidity event. In this situation, the rent that you're paying is paying your mortgage, which is building equity in your real estate. And so if you choose to decide to sell your practice one day, you can also sell your real estate, hence the dual liquidity events that can occur for you in the future. So you can look at the real estate debt service as really a way for you to build wealth over time. Because instead of paying someone rent, you're paying the bank your mortgage, and you're owning the real estate, right? Um, you have your HOA, which is about $13,000 a year. You have your utilities annualized, being about $3,860 per year. At a monthly rate, it's about $321, right? You have your real estate taxes, right? Which is, most of the time in the city of Chicago, if you're buying real estate in Cook County, the most, if not all the time, your real estate taxes are almost double this, maybe even triple in a lot of cases. And so for this to be $9,300 is a phenomenal opportunity that people should take advantage of. Your property insurance, about $300 a month. Your staff compensation, right, about $13,000 a month. What does that cover, right? You have your own pay, right? You as a dentist, if you're operating this dental practice, you're paying yourself. But that has nothing to do with staff compensation. What is staff compensation? This is a front desk and a dental assistant. You don't need a hygienist the first year. You don't need another associate your first year. This is purely for your front desk and dental assistant at a full time, right? Whether it's 4 days or 5 days and you give them an admin day while you're off, it's 100% doable, right? You have your credit card processing charges. You have your licensing, your taxes and permits on a monthly basis at about $2,000. You have your liability insurance. You have your IT. You have your marketing, right, that you're going to be putting out there in Google ads, Facebook ads, flyers and whatnot. And then you have your professional fees, right? You got to pay your accountant to file your tax returns. You got to pay your lawyers. And, these, again, are standard benchmarks, right? You could be a little bit more savvy in business and not pay this much in professional fees every month, or you could pay more, right? But these are the industry benchmarks, right? And so after all said and done, you're looking at an annual compensation of about $214,000 a year, right? And that's money that goes to you as the business owner, right? That's about $18,000 a month. That's a 33% margin. So you're telling me if you took out $1 million loan, bought the real estate and the practice equipment that comes with it, and just opened up your business and then started cash flowing it with all of the standard operating assumptions, you can take home $200,000 a year operating out of this dental office here, right? Within the first year. I think that is a considerable upside because you're not only investing in the practice with your labor and time, you're investing in that second liquidity event, which is selling the real estate. Think about it. If you buy this real estate and you work on getting this practice going to just 1 year of collections, you could bring home $200,000. You're investing in the real estate, you're investing in your practice, and you're going to do phenomenally well, right? None of these expenses look uh, of concern. And they're pretty standard. None of them are high, none of them are too low, they're not too high, right? And so, what this really kind of like highlights here is the analysis that we're taking here. These are industry standard expense benchmarks. These are industry standard collection and expense benchmarks. And for someone to come around and to purchase this real estate, it makes sense, right? It makes sense for anyone who is looking to start their first practice, own their first practice, and own their real estate. And so the last thing that you really want to kind of consider here is understanding, okay, well, $1 million is a lot, Will. Like, why should I pay $1 million for this? Well, let's just compare it. Like, and that's the last thing that we can do here. Let's compare it. If you wanted to uh, start your own practice, right, and you wanted to start from ground up, like there was no existing practice, how much would it cost you? Well, first, on average, most build outs in the city are costing anywhere from 220 to 270 per square foot. Okay. So let's say this we find a similar space that's 2,300 square feet. What does that mean? That means on average, if we do the average between these two, and the average would be 240. Let me just do the math here. Let's just say the average is 240. And essentially, we multiply it by 2,300. So let's see, 240 times 2,300. That's $552,000 just to do a build out, right? Then let's say an equipment to retrofit the same amount of equipment. That's another $250,000, right? Essentially, what we're looking at is something that is basically comparable to purchasing the real estate here. And so what a lot of people need to understand is like, so for example, if this is the build out cost and this is the equipment cost, right? Let's see here. And let's see what the total is. Total will be this plus this. Oh, sorry. You're looking at $800,000, right? Then you have another working capital because you're going to need working capital to take out in order to start this. You're going to have to take out another $100,000. So that puts you at a total of, this, your build out, your equipment, plus your working capital. That turns to $900,000, right? So if you started your own practice and you pay $220 to $270 per square foot at 2,300 square feet, your build out will cost this much, your equipment will cost this much, plus your working capital, it would cost you $900,000 from the bank to purchase this, to start your own practice. And so the difference of $100,000 and you get to own your real estate, it's pretty minimal, right? And so like this process that I just kind of went through here, this is sort of the idea or analysis of, okay, if I were to build this on my own, if I were to build this opportunity, how much would it cost me, right? And on top of that, what a lot of people don't understand as well is this takes time. This is going to take you 6 to 9 months, and that's if and that's after you lock in your lease, which your lease is going to take 1 to 3 months, right? And so the reality is lease time, and then this is build out time. And that doesn't incorporate the fact that you're going to have permitting problems along the way or inspection problems along the way. You don't know. And so, if I were in this position and I saw this opportunity and I just went through the math, and this makes 10 times more sense than doing my own thing in the city of Chicago, especially if I own the practice. And if you're worried about cash flow, it's like, okay, even if I did it right now, I'd be taking home at least $200,000. And so, on an economic analysis, on a location analysis, this opportunity makes the most sense. So, yeah.